doing, Met fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Terry Collins Show, presented by Tunnel to Towers, supporting America's greatest heroes. Donate just $11 per month by going to T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. I'm John Arezzi, and back with us for this jam-packed show is the former skipper of the New York Mets, the last manager to take them to the World Series 10 years ago, and back in Florida after participating in the Tunnel to Towers annual 5K run in New York. Terry Collins. Terry, welcome back.
It's good to be back, John. Nice to see you. Hope everything's good. We've got a lot to talk about today, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, let's talk about the 5K run that you just did in New York, and very successful event. I understand 40,000 people participated, and you were one of them. So talk to us about that experience this year, and it's the second year you did it for them.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. First of all, I remember Frank Siller got on stage, and he said that he was, in the beginning, they wanted to cap it at 30,000, and he said the replies were so tremendous that he said, okay, fine, we'll open it up, and they had over 40,000 runners. They start out last year, the cadets from West Point came out, and they lined up where you ran through them into the tunnel and then ran the race. Well, this year they ran first, 2,500 cadets from West Point. And you talk about the future of America, they're in great hands because there were some great looking kids running. I'm really glad they ran ahead of me and not behind me because they had stomped all over me because I've reached the age, John, where my time is not the point is anymore. It's just making sure I could finish it. So, yeah, I ran with a couple of guys. I ran with a buddy of mine who's a retired ND or NYPD guy, and he's real good. He's actually a marathoner now, so he just wanted to run the race. And I said, "Go ahead." And me, no, I'll run with you. I said, "Well, about halfway through that tunnel, I said, listen, I'm going to get over to the side because when we start running up the end of that, going back up that tunnel, up that road into Manhattan, I'm slowing down." So it was a great race, tremendous enthusiasm. And I'm going to tell you, John, you talk about adrenaline rush. When you get through that tunnel into Manhattan and you have 1,000 firemen on one side, 1,000 policemen on the other side, you've got bands playing, bagpipe groups. And I mean, the rush is just incredible. And the cheering and the runners themselves pushing each other and it's really an amazing thing. And what those guys do, what the Tunnel to Towers people do is just off the charts. And their support throughout the city of New York and really around the country now is really tremendous.
Yeah, their footprint is growing, and they're doing these 5K runs in several cities across America now. So they just keep expanding and helping the vets and doing what they do. And it's just kind of amazing. I just got back from New York. I was up there at the headquarters up in Staten Island. And Terry, I don't think you've been to their headquarters in Staten Island, but it's in an unassuming like strip mall in Staten Island, and they have a very very small staff, but through those doors with the American flags on the roof, and you go in there, and the incredible work that they do, and the people that they help, and it's not a big place, it's not a big corporate office, it's just simple. And but the things that they do to help others is just incredible, and their missions and the growth and their baseball involvement has been off the chart, and they're getting more involved with baseball. Lots of projects in the works, and they did want to once again thank you and express their gratitude for your participation over the last couple of years with the groundbreakings that you've gone to, and the races that you've run, and the and also the golf tournaments that you've participated in. And I understand you have another one that's coming up at a really big golf course up in the Northeast.
Yeah, we were playing at Liberty National in New Jersey, one of the greatest courses in the country. And, it's a real fun to be there. There's a lot of good guys. And again, the attendance is crazy, but it's a beautiful course. And then in the spring, they have one down in West Palm that I go to. It's right down the road from me. And so I attend that and have so much fun. And the other guys that show up, the football players and the hockey players, especially the one in March. It's just those guys. And but it all starts with Frank. It's like every other major corporation. It starts at the top, and he treats his employees tremendously. The guys that he calls to do stuff for him, they all can't wait to be involved. And I tease him all the time, John, every time I talk to him about, he starts to open his mouth and someone gives him $100,000. And I will tell you what, as we know, 98% of that goes to those people who need it most. And he's done a tremendous job.
Yes, he has. Well, we certainly appreciate, and I know they appreciate your everything that you've done for them and what we do here at the show for them. And we'll debut a couple of news stories today as well, including one from a former WWE world champion, a Hall of Famer, Mick Foley. So we'll debut that later in our Tunnel to Towers segment. But we have a big leadoff today. And then we also are going to bring on Terry, somebody you're very familiar with, and not to give too many clues out there. But you're going to be joined by somebody that you've had a viral moment with that has been seen around the world. So we look forward to bringing that gentleman on shortly and make a big announcement when it comes to that. So let's get right to the leadoff. And the Mets have begun to make the changes they feel will result in a better outcome in 2026. And here to discuss it all with us is the Mets beat writer for Newsday, analyst for SNY and Baseball Night in New York, Laura Albanese. Laura, welcome back.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for coming back on.
Hey, Terry. Good to see you.
I hope everybody's calmed down by now.
I think it's going to take a while.
It's been a rough few weeks for sure. Laura, how are you decompressing after the baseball season is finished, at least as far as your coverage?
It's obviously there's been a lot of movement with the Mets essentially cleaning house with their coaching staff. And right now you're just kind of in a holding pattern, seeing what's going to happen next. Obviously you can't make any rash moves, especially with the level of collapse that they experienced. But the next few months are going to be interesting.
Yeah. Those changes in the coaching staff, Terry, I think, you talked to Carlos. How's Carlos holding up? Before we even get into the coaching changes, it's got to be disappointing for him, but I still think that he's just a quality person and a great manager.
He is, John. He's down in the dumps like you expect. He thought they were going to get in also, especially after the tremendous first part of the season they had. And, and what he said at the end of the season, we've all felt, there's times when, you got to walk out and address the media, and you really, there's, what are you going to say? There's really not much to say. You've used all of the cliches possible. They've worn out. It's about getting the job done on the field, which they didn't do. And ultimately, obviously, we all hate it, but someone's going to take the fall for it all. So, I look at the coaches because I had to make coaching changes myself several times during my managerial career, not just in New York, but other places too. But, I knew how hard they worked and what they meant to a lot of the players. And, you remember 3 years ago, Eric Chavez was the golden boy of hitting. And, and then, Hef comes on board and he's done a great job. And last spring we read about some of the pitchers they signed who came there because Jeremy Hefner had the baseball pitching lab that they wanted to be a part of. They'd heard so much about it. And so, and again, it's no matter how hard you work, that you've got to go get it done on the field and execute it. And otherwise, heads roll. And that's what happened in New York. And it's sad, but that comes with the territory. And that doesn't mean those guys are not good coaches. They are very, very good coaches. And, I know Mike Sarbaugh for a long time, and I know he's an outstanding infield coach, works hard as anybody. But, it's got to get done. And when it doesn't get done, as we know, people pay the price.
Yeah, I do feel there's some element of, okay, maybe they do need more different blood, but so many times in these situations, it does kind of feel a little bit like a sacrificial lamb situation where you kind of want your pound of flesh a little bit. So you see some of the things. I mean, obviously Jeremy Hefner had been so lauded. You look at a guy like Glenn Sherlock who opted to retire. The catchers actually got better during that time. I do think it was maybe a little bit of a complicated situation, even though Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez worked well together. I do think having two hitting coaches can be a little bit of a challenge if you're getting that much information. So I am fascinated to see in which direction they go. I would sometimes get a little bit frustrated because every time something would go wrong, people would immediately be calling for the heads of one of these coaches. But you can't necessarily fault the coaches for this year without giving them credit for last year. You can't have it both ways.
Laura, I totally agree with that. Totally 100% agree with that. Years ago when all of a sudden you started to see assistant pitching coaches come on board. And one of the reasons for that was, the pitching coach himself spends so much time with the starting pitchers. Sometimes those bullpen guys are kind of left out. Matter of fact, when I was in New York, we were bringing up some young relief pitchers, and that's when I made a change. And I made a change with the bullpen coach, who at the time was one of my closest friends to this day, John DiBiase. And I talked with Dan, the pitching coach, and I said, I think we need a pitching guy in the bullpen because these young pitchers are coming, and you work with those guys when they're warming up, to come in the game because they throw so much. You can't be working with them so much like at 2:00 in the afternoon because they may have to pitch that night. So there was they came up with assistant pitching guys. Now all of a sudden you've got two hitting guys, and I will tell you this, Laura, and you what you just said. You know what? Sometimes too many voices can get in the way. And even though everybody says, oh no, we're on the same page, sometimes you say something different. One of the coaches will say it in a different way, and so it doesn't come across the same as maybe the main guy. And you can get some really strained relationships between players and coaches when it comes to that. And again, it goes back to the analytics side. You've got all of this information. You walk up there, and I'm going to tell you, Laura, I just finished watching how many baseball games this last and I'm so tired of watching fastballs down the middle taking strikes, right? I mean, hittable balls. That years ago, you used to hunt those pitches. Now, because there's so many breaking balls, there's so much data. Well, you're going to get 75% of the chance you're going to get a 1-1 breaking ball. So they go up there and hunt the breaking ball, and they take a stinking fastball right down the middle. And that stuff that just absolutely grinds me. I almost want to turn the TV off and say, I'm moving on. I can't watch this. But again, it goes back to what you're saying. There's so much data out there now, and where does the data come from? It comes from that's the coaches' jobs of the coaches today is to gather that information and use it.
Yeah, and I had conversations with people within the Mets, and I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but there was a level of frustration in terms of, yes, we have all these hitting coaches, but then everybody has their own hitting gurus. And everybody has all these other things that they're doing in the offseason. And I'd actually asked David Stearns, is there ever a concern that all these voices in the offseason and then during the season could confuse things, could muddle things for a guy like Francisco Alvarez, who was struggling a little bit in the first half of the season? And he said, no, everybody is okayed by the franchise, which I certainly believe. But there's such a human element to it when you're getting so many different voices. And you do wonder if sometimes that ability to just go there and hit a fastball down the middle kind of leaves you because you're thinking about it so much.
That's very true. Laura, I'll go back. I'll tell you a story. In 1994, I was managing in Houston, and Jeff Bagwell came in one day in my office, and he said, I need to – now this is with the year he was the MVP, so he didn't have very many 0 for 4s. But if he had an 0 for 4, he came in and he'd want extra batting practice the next day, and I would take him out, just he and I. No hitting coaches, no shaggers, no other. He picked the balls up. But he had to figure it out himself. Yeah. He didn't want all of this data. He watched the videos. He knew how he had to feel in the batter's box. And maybe that's why he was a Hall of Famer, because he knew himself, and he knew when he was right and when he wasn't. And when he wasn't right, he wanted to fix it himself. He didn't want all this input. I had a conversation at the beginning of the season this year with Noah Syndergaard. And Noah said, I've had 10 pitching coaches in the last 2 years. 10. He said, I'm so confused. I don't know what I'm doing right now. And that is from, in my opinion, one of the absolutely most talented pitching guys going. And he said, I've got to figure it out. And the answer to that is, you're right, you do. You have to figure it out. You're a big league player who's got all this information. You got all this video. You go figure it out and get to the point where you can. Because, once in a while, again, all of that info, which you just said, I totally agree with you, Laura. There's too much information out there.
Yeah, there's a balance. In all things, there's balance. And sometimes you lose the balance.
Well, the coaching situation, and obviously there'll be moves that will be made to bring people in. And John Gibbons was the bench coach, and John, I guess, resigned rather than being let go. I think Gibby really wants to try and get into a manager's seat one more time before he calls it a day. But Gibby's old school, and he wasn't a big fan of analytics as well. So how does that bode for him looking for a gig if he decides to do that? But that bench coach job, Terry, is an important one. And where do you think the Mets are going to go when it comes to inserting a bench coach for Carlos? Is it going to be someone maybe from within the organization that, like maybe a Carlos Beltran or someone out there? But that's a key role to be filled right from the start, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's another job that's changed, John. When I first got the bullpen or the bench coach's job was to pretty much fill out the lineup cards. I'd write them on a piece of paper and give it to them, and they'd put them on the big piece that goes in the dugout and fill out the ones for the umpires. And now all of a sudden it's evolved because of what we've been talking about, all this information. Their job's kind of now to gather this information and decide, what needs to be heard and where it's at. And in the case of a lot of managers now, you go to your bench coach and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. What's your thoughts? And get and that's why John was, I think, a perfect fit for Carlos, a first year manager, having, in my opinion, one of the best major league managers there was, looking at it maybe from a different perspective. So I thought John's job has really become big. I think John, with all the jobs that are going to be open this year, has got a shot at it. But that bench coach's job now is a big job. Years ago, it was the third base coaches who got the next managerial jobs, if you remember. Now It's the bench coaches, guys, who are getting the those major league managing jobs. And I don't know where they're going to go. I have no idea. But I told Carlos, and again, this is just my opinion, you better get somebody that you can talk to who can walk in and look at you and say, you're wrong here, knowing, and you can trust him enough to know he doesn't want your job. He just wants to help you. He's on your side. He's got your back, but can give you a difference of opinion and maybe, be forceful about it and not trying to harm you, but just trying to help you. And every manager needs one of those guys. Joe Torre had Don Zimmer, for heaven's sakes, one of the best ever. And I've always said that was a job. That was one job that I think, like Carlos Beltran, I think he'd be absolutely ideal for Carlos. And I hope Carlos gets, hopefully Carlos, if he wants it, if Carlos Beltran wants to do that, gets that opportunity to be on the bench, because I think he would make a huge impact in that dugout and in the clubhouse.
I agree with that. I mean, we saw Carlos plenty on the road. He'd be traveling with the team. The guys really respected him. They spoke to him. They looked up to him. And, since he's already around Mendoza, they probably already have that sort of relationship, which is super important. I love that point you make. More than anything, you don't want the person who's going to yes you to death. You're going to need the person who's willing and able to tell you that you're wrong without it feeling threatening or disrespectful. And if you already have an established working relationship, that helps a lot. I know that Edgardo Alfonso also talked to AM New York about an interest in joining the coaching staff. So I'm wondering if that's a possibility. That could be a good fit too. He did a lot of good things with the Cyclones, but it's early in the process. I do not. This is going to be complicated. These are some really big decisions. And the fact that they have to start basically from the beginning for everyone, it's hard. Those coaches were respected. A lot of those players liked those coaches. You not only have to find someone who can do the job, but you can have to find somebody who can command respect of a room of very veteran players.
Yeah, Laura, I go back when I hired Kevin Long and Pat Russell as hitting guys. I knew Pat because he had run some minor leagues. I did not know Kevin. But the thing that impressed players most about Kevin, he had a plan, but his work ethic is off the charts.
Yeah. I
mean, there was not a day that in spring training or during the season that a hitting guy walked to that cage or walked to the video room without Kevin Long or Pat Russell being there. Mm-hmm. They were there first and they were there last. And that speaks volumes with the players. And so, especially when you start, making impacts. And, and that's when you interview coaches, it comes down to, hey, how hard are you willing to work to try to get this all done? And, they all say the right things, but, you'll see it as a manager, you'll start to see. And that's one of the things I always watch those guys. I'd get, I was at spring training at 5:00 in the morning. I'm working out, and not next to me working out is Kevin Long, because he made sure he was in that cage at 7 a.m. when guys weren't even at the ballpark yet. He's in the cage waiting. So that speaks volumes for me as coaches.
It's funny you say that because I'd been working on a story on Antoine Richardson, which is, of course, one of the guys who kept his job. And one prevailing sentiment that I heard from players is that he is always working. You say whatever you want about Antoine, but he was always looking at film and he was always working. And I do think that commanded a lot of respect.
Absolutely.
It did. And he did such a great job with the players and in the running game. Look at the bases Juan Soto ran. But Terry, I heard you say something interesting to Mike Francesa, and you were on a show of his last week, and he was like, "Yeah, it's great. All these guys are stealing bases, but you got to drive them in." So that was telling.
I had a conversation one day with Jim Leland when and I was in here when I first early got the job in New York, and he. Was the big thing about, especially after the Moneyball stuff came out about on base percentage. And Jim said, I get that, Terry. He said, I understand that, getting on base. He said, that's very, very important. He said, but what's a little bit more important than that? Finding somebody who drives them in. And Jim said, and I got two of them. And that's why I win, because I got two guys who drive them in. He was talking about Cabrera and Prince Fielder. And he said, because if I didn't have those two guys, I didn't give a crap how many guys were on base. We couldn't drive them in. It didn't matter. And so, and so that's, that, and I will go back when I interviewed hitting coaches back in Houston. I interviewed Tony Perez, and I asked him what his philosophy was. And he just said, well, all I know is how to drive runs in. And I thought, wow. But back then it was all about mechanics, your stance, where your hands were, the bat, because that's when you swung down through the ball, that kind of a stuff. But, Halsey said, look, I just know how to drive runs in. And I thought, wow, that's big. And now today here we look at games night after night after night. We were just watching here yesterday, all the guys left on base, the ability to drive those runs in is huge.
It is the biggest thing. It's so funny how at the end of the day it becomes that reductive. Hey, you just have to score more runs than the other guy. So let's work on that.
Laura, can't state it better than that. That's the only way you win.
That's all the only way. Nobody's ever won a game 0-0. So
that is true. Well, there'll be changes made. Obviously, in the coaching staff, they're going to be hiring a whole new staff other than Anton at first base. But let's talk about the moves that the Mets really have to make in order to kind of get back into the postseason in 2026. Terry, do you have any early offseason thoughts about what the Mets really need to do for 2026?
Well, again, John, it's always easy when it's not your money, when the money comes out of someone else's pocket. But, I think they got to start by I think they need to bring Pete back. I say what you want. This guy has shown that he is a run producer. This guy's 100 RBIs early in the season. This guy got more 2-out single drove in runs. I think they need to sign Pete back, in my opinion. That's just the number one. Secondly, this game is about pitching, and you've got to go get some starting pitching. And I'm not going to get into the training of pitching, which I think has gone backwards, but I think you've got to go get starting pitching because that's what's going to carry. I look what's going on with the Dodgers. I mean, everybody, when spring training came about, they were raving about this tremendous rotation they were going to have with 6 or 7 guys. Well, half of them got hurt. That's why they're so dominant in the playoffs because they don't have any innings. They were hurt half the season. So now they're right at the end of the year. They're all back in shape, but you've got to go get pitching. And I thought this forever, no disrespect to Sean Manaea. I thought what he did last year, changing his arm angle, making it different, he really pitched great. But, John, if you look at the back of baseball cards and when you see, hey, look, this guy's pretty good. Well, that's all you're going to get is pretty good. You're not going to get Cy Young stuff. Okay. So you look at somebody's baseball card that said, geez, second to Cy Young 3 years in a row or something. Those guys, get those guys. Because they're the quality, and quality is what wins it in our game. And and again, as we know, for years the Yankees did it as good as anybody. Go out and have tremendous bullpen. And you looked at what the Brewers did yesterday out of their bullpen. 7 innings of shutout ball out of their bullpen. or 7 and 3rd innings or whatever. Tremendous job by their bullpen. So it all comes back down to you've got to get quality pitching. And as we watch this year, would they have, Laura, 47 pitchers? Something like that?
Yeah, a major league record, 47 different pitchers.
47 guys. You can't have that. You cannot have that. So you've got to go get some pitching.
I 100% agree with you. And I think this offseason is going to be really interesting to see exactly how much David Stearns adheres to his philosophy that he's already put out there. He does not like to spend a lot of money on frontline pitchers. The Mets could use a frontline pitcher. I understand he wants to develop from within, and Nolan McLean really does look like the real deal. But you've got to not only have to build a rotation, but you have to build a rotation that can withstand some injuries, which they were not able to do. I agree with you with Pete. 126 RBIs. I mean, we talk about scoring runs. There's your run scorer right there. This is a guy who's driving in runs. And then I think a big piece of the puzzle, if Edwin Diaz opts out of that contract, I think the Mets are going to be in trouble, because when Edwin Diaz had that season-ending injury, that is what sunk that team all those years ago. I think Edwin Diaz had an elite year. He's back to form. Is he going to be expensive? It's not my money, but yeah, he's going to be expensive. I do feel like he's a key piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, I think those are the two biggest decisions the Mets are going to have to make in the offseason is Alonso and Diaz. And
yeah.
Those are,
I agree.
Key players, but you can't lose those guys.
I totally agree, guys. I totally agree. That's got to be the head of your list. So,
do you think Pete, with the right deal, because there's a lot of talk about his defense, and do you think that he would take, if he gets the right deal from Stearns and Cohen, would consider DHing a little bit more or starting to DH more as the years progress? Because that may be a factor there. But what is your thought on that?
Without a question, John, I think it's going to come down to money. That's what's going to get, to get him, you're going to have to pay. And if you come to him and say, hey, look, we're willing to pay, but, you're going to DH more than you have in the past. David Ortiz went to the Hall of Fame as a DH. Edgar Martinez. I mean, there's some great players at DH, and there's nothing wrong. It's a huge part of your lineup today. I used to, I think it was even earlier this year, you looked up and their DH was hitting 7th. That's not what the position's for. Those DHs hit 3 to 5. That's where they hit. And so, and if that's going to keep him out there and keep him fresh and keep him pounding baseballs, more power to him. And that's, as I said on Mike Francesa show, he thinks maybe Soto should be a full-time DH. Well, whether that's true or not, the point is, that DH is a big important position right now. But I'll tell you this one thing about Pete. And you know what? Everybody talks about his defense. Nobody works harder at trying to get better defensively than Pete Alonso. So The one thing he does, he'll give you effort. And the other thing, you look up 162 times and he's standing in first place.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And who can do that?
That's right.
Yeah. And Pete, DHing more would maybe extend his career because he doesn't have the day-to-day wear to tear playing first base and diving and scooping and all the other physicality that comes with playing the position. So I do hope they work that out because Pete's got to come back. I mean, he's really the face of this franchise, and he's the home run king for the franchise. And the fans love him. He loves New York. So there's a fit there. They just got to sit down in a room, make it happen, and we hope that that number 20 will be in New York for a long, long time. And Diaz, as Laura said, he's back to being an elite closer, and that opt-out that he's got, I think the Mets really, without Diaz in that closing role, I mean, they would be missing a lot. So I hope that they can bring him back at the deal that he's looking for, and but those are the two key pieces, I think, when it comes to the Mets offseason. The other thing is third base. I mean, what do you do with third base? I mean, Vientos is not shown to be a strong defensive player. Beatty has him beat there, and Beatty had a much better season than Vientos. So where do the Mets go on the hot corner, Terry and then Laura? What do they do with that situation there?
Well, if I'm reading the papers correctly, when they're talking about their priority is going to be run prevention, then you got to put the best defensive team out there. And, and you'd be surprised when you do that how much better your pitching is. when you catch the baseball behind them. So, you got to look at it wholeheartedly and say, what's our best shot? And, maybe it's put Vientos over at first base and have him work hard over there and let if they get Pete re-signed, alternate him. Keep, let one guy play every so often, let the other guy in there. But the one thing that today's game is that sometimes I have a little tough time watching it is everybody has to be versatile. Everybody has to be able to play 2 or 3 positions. I disagree with that. Find a spot that you play really good and stay there and play really good. So you don't have to keep worrying about, what you got. And, you can always feel if you need a day off, find that guy that's versatile and give this guy a day off. But otherwise, hey, run that good defense out there.
Yeah, I agree with this so much. And we had talked to Stearns about this. I love positional versatility, but not everybody can be a super utility player. You don't need an infield full of super utility players and a shortstop. I mean, that's not going to be your A-plus defense. And I think especially with the way that the Mets relied on contact-heavy pitchers, then having players playing out of position, suddenly you're not preventing those runs. So, Beatty, I feel like, is the defensively superior option at third base. You could also look elsewhere, like an Alex Bregman or something like that, if you're willing to spend the money, where you have somebody to really stabilize that part of the infield. It was just such a liability too often, and it's not just errors. It's the range. It's like not making the barehanded pick that you need. It's the little things that don't necessarily show up on the score sheet that I feel add up and led to those kind of like big run deficits that completely changed the tenor of the at-bats, because this team really had a hard time hitting when they were behind.
Very, very true. The other position is center field, and that's glaring also. Cedric Mullins, who they traded for at the trade deadline, didn't really excel. Jose Siri got hurt, and now he's DFA'd, and Taylor has done his job out there. But they need a everyday quality center fielder, and where do you go for that? Is that in the minor league or is it free agency?
That's true, John, but I'm going to tell you, I didn't see a lot of Cedric Mullins, but I watched him enough times in Baltimore. He's a better player than what he played in New York. Yeah. He's a better player than that. So, maybe it was the change of scenery. Maybe it was putting him, from going from, of course, he played on a couple of real good Orioles teams, but, being slammed into the area and, hey, it's all on your back right now. I don't know him very well at all. So, but. Yeah, center field. I mean, again, it's Citi Field. That's a big ballpark. Still, even though they've moved the fences in a couple of times, that's still a big park. So center field's a big position. And I got blessed. I had Juan Lagares, who I don't know if he won 1 or 2 Gold Gloves out there, but again, that changes the dynamics of your pitching staff when they you hit the ball in the air, and you got somebody out there who can go run it down. So yeah, those are big spots. But the bottom line is going to be, how much are you willing to spend to fill those spots? Yeah.
I mean, if they do want to save a little bit more money, I don't hate Tyrone Taylor there. He's arbitration eligible. The reason I don't hate Tyrone Taylor there is because Juan Soto had said that I told Tyrone, go ahead and take it from me. Juan Soto is not a defensively strong right fielder. To have a center fielder who can essentially cover a little bit of left, because Brandon Nimmo is average to slightly below average, to Juan Soto, who is below average defensively, a guy who can do all of that, sometimes you're willing to take a lighter bat. If they can kind of balance the lineup in other ways, I don't hate Taylor there as a fairly regular center fielder if they want to save money in one area.
Got it. I'm sure you're both watching what's going on in the postseason, and I'd like to get your thoughts and assessment as we wrap up the leadoff segment here with who do you think is going to be in the World Series at the end of the day, and what are your predictions this postseason?
Go ahead, Laura. You watch more than I do.
So my heart wants Mariners Brewers. I just think that's a fun matchup. I love hard hitting catchers, so Cal Raleigh, that's always a blast for me. The Brewers, I like this idea of a complete baseball team essentially populated by a bunch of guys that you don't know very well. The Dodgers look great. Philadelphia is currently melting down, not only just the Phillies, but their fans, apparently, if you happen to go on X. So that's fun. And I like the Blue Jays. I don't know. It's like one of those things, but if I want to say something, let's give it to the Mariners. haven't had it yet. Give Cal Raleigh MVP. Let's go from there.
I think that, for the baseball purist, I think what she said is perfect. Yeah, the Brewers, the Mariners, it's two just franchises would be just wonderful for them. The TV people, they're sick to their stomach right now to think that the Mariners and the Brewers, they're going crazy. But I think that'd be a wonderful, wonderful matchup in the World Series. The fans in both spots would be absolutely ecstatic. And if you're a baseball fan, I think it's great. It shows you that, hey, if you play the game right, if you play the game the way it's supposed to be played, you can win. You can win the whole thing at the big league level.
Yeah, I'm sure the networks are not really happy with that possible scenario, but there's another little twist there. Milwaukee, didn't they start out as the Seattle Pilots in 69?
They did, yeah.
So that's another little storyline there. But I'm watching like everybody else is, and I was astounded at the way the Blue Jays handled the Yankees up in Toronto. I mean, that's a dynamic team.
That is a
Vladdy Jr. is he's performing on the spotlight, and this is what he's been waiting for all these years. And so the country of Canada, who really only have one team to cheer for, it's something getting the whole country behind you. So the way the Blue Jays are playing, the other storylines with Seattle and Milwaukee and Phillies, and the Philly fans booing their players, like it's just an interesting. It's always an interesting postseason, and this one is really interesting. But at the end of the day, for me personally, I like the Blue Jays. I think they got a lot of momentum on their side, but it would be really cool to see either Milwaukee or Seattle get the first World Series victory in their franchise history. So we'll watch it unfold over the next few weeks. Laura, as always, great to have you here, and I know you're in the off-season. What does the off-season mean to you? Like, what are you going to be covering during this lull between now and spring training?
So whatever the Mets are doing, obviously, if the Yankees advance to the ALCS, I'll probably be doing that. I might end up doing the World Series regardless. But I am currently what they call fun employed because you work every single day. You do get like a nice little stretch of vacation time. So once, other than GM meetings and winter meetings and news, it's going to be a little bit of an easier stretch. And
the Baseball Night in New York, that's a year-long show anyway, so I'm sure we'll see you on there as well.
Yeah, I will be there. We were recording on a Tuesday. I will be there tonight. I'll be on Baseball Night in New York, and I have my podcast, first-time listener, long-time caller. So I try to stay busy and watch a whole lot of baseball and then a whole lot of football.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, as always, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Talk to you soon. All right.
Talk to you soon.
Always great to have Laura Albanese with us and Terry going over the leadoff and all the news that's happening. And we really appreciate not only Laura, but Andy Martino. We couldn't ask for better insiders to be associated here with the Terry Collins Show. And, of course, Terry talked in length about Tunnel the Towers and our friends at Tunnel. Their 24th annual New York City 5K is in the books. 40,000 people who retraced the footsteps of New York City firefighter Stephen Siller, who was killed at the World Trade Center on 9/11. The New York Run is one of dozens around the region and across the country. The money from all of these events goes towards providing mortgage-free homes for Gold Star and fallen family responder units and catastrophically wounded vets. Look for a run near you at t2t.org. And there's another big event coming up in the New York area. Tunnel the Towers is hosting its Heroes Cup hockey tournament on October 18th. Teams from FDNY, NYPD, Port Authority Police, Coast Guard, and other law enforcement agencies will be mixing it up in a spirited game at Ice Vault Arena in Wayne, New Jersey. It's a great atmosphere of competition and brotherhood. Proceeds from the event go to Tunnel the Towers. For more information, go to t2t.org. That's T, the number 2, t.org. And Tunnel the Towers is continuing its effort to eradicate veteran homelessness. On Wednesday, October 29th, the foundation will hold a groundbreaking for its newest Veterans Village. The facility in Birmingham, Alabama, will provide permanent housing for more than 100 of America's greatest heroes. In addition to shelter, the Veterans Villages will offer a full range of supportive services. Your donation of $11 per month can bring stability and hope for a homeless vet. For information on all the Tunnel to Towers programs, just go to t2t.org. That's T2T.org. And we will be back with our big announcement and former MLB umpire, Mr. Ass in the Jackpot, Tom Hallion, right after this word from the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
My name is Lisa Tuzzolo. I am the wife of NYPD Sergeant Paul Tuzzolo, who was killed in the line of duty on November 4th, 2016. I think there are many reasons why it's important to give back to Tunnel to Towers. They've given me financial support to move forward and the ability to be home with my children and not worry about how the next bill is going to be paid. Tunnel to Towers. Let us do good.
Our next guest on the Terry Collins Show, these two gentlemen will be linked forever for a heated argument that took place on the field on May the 28th, 2016 in Citi Field, following an ejection of Noah Syndergaard for throwing at Los Angeles Dodger infielder Chase Utley. Terry and our guest got into an argument that now lives in baseball history. Let's relive that moment right now.
You're done. No, I mean, you can't do that. You're not in that situation, man. You can't. That ain't gonna happen. I mean, I knew you were gonna say that, but that ain't gonna happen. I mean, that's the wrong time to do it. That's all. I'm telling you.
It's the wrong time to do anything.
It is what it is, but that ain't gonna happen. Our ass is in the jackpot. We don't do something there. I'm just telling you that.
But shouldn't there be a warning?
No. I mean, okay, the situation of what happened and everything else, that's what dictates that, okay?
But there was no prior knowledge that before the game started. I mean, if Terry comes into the dugout and says, hey, if somebody gets hit, then that's...
everybody knows what the situation is, okay? Take him. Terry. Terry, get a handle. Come on, let's go. Come on, talk to me. Talk to me.
Tommy, that's fucking bullshit.
Terry, talk to me. Then you talk to me about it.
Okay. You gotta give us a shot.
You know what?
You gotta give us a shot,
Okay,
Tom.
listen to me and let me hear what I'm saying, okay? You get your shot. You had your shot right there. In the situation.
Well, why
you
not?
know the situation, Terry.
Why don't you get a shot, Tommy?
Because that makes it worse. Terry, that makes it fucking worse.
I know it, but MLB did nothing to that guy. Nothing.
Okay, that I can't control that, Terry. I can't control that. You know as well as I do Terry, you know where I stand on the whole fucking situation. But
you're better than that, Tommy. You know that.
Terry, listen, I'm telling you, our ass is in the jackpot now. Okay, I'm just telling you.
Fucking motherfucker.
You know what? That's you got it. Okay, get it. You got everything out.
Well, let's say hello to Tom Hallion. Tom, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Tom, thanks for coming on again.
My pleasure, Terry. Anytime, any place, anywhere.
The thing that people don't understand, and I've had to answer this a number of times. I have to answer it on Fifth Avenue once in a while when I'm in New York City. But everybody thinks that you and I were mad at each other. That is not true. That is the farthest thing that happened. And to be honest, I was more upset about the home plate umpire, for ejecting Noah. But I'll tell you one thing. There's not a day go by that someone, and I mean seriously, not a day that someone doesn't bring up the video with you and I arguing about Noah getting kicked out and throwing it to. I ran a race the other day in New York, the Tunnel and Towers race, and some guy runs by me and says, "Hey, you got to give us a shot. Our ass is in the jackpot." I said, "Hey, Tom," as he goes by, I said, I thought I was going to get through one day without hearing that.
No, it's really, like I said last time I was on with you, it's taken on a life of its own. And to your point, I think why it happened in such good light was I always respected you as a manager on the ball field. I hope, and I think you've told me that you always had, respect for me on the ball field. So we were able to do that. You were mad at Adam. I was trying just to take the argument away from Adam and let you yell at me. You could have said anything, whatever you want to do, because I knew it wasn't at me. It wasn't personal. I got what you were saying. I knew exactly what you were pissed about, and and I was just trying to let you get it all out. As I said in the end of the video, was there. You got it. You get it all out.
She said, yeah.
So,
and you were right. I got it all out finally. Yeah, there was no doubt about it.
That was 9 years ago, and it's still just something people talk about all the time. And I have to tell you, I mean, we have our platforms on our YouTube channel and of course Instagram and X, and out of every show that we've done, and this is second season, 50 shows in, your episode when you and Terry got together for the first time to look at that now has a cumulative number of views over the platforms. 1,800,000 people have viewed that.
Well, John, I can tell you, and Tom, I'll tell you, after that podcast came out, and, I'm really blessed. I've got a lot of great friends, not just in baseball, but outside baseball. The emails and the texts that I got after that podcast, they said, and one guy said to me, it's all I do during the day is listen to podcasts. It's the best podcast I have ever heard or ever be. And he said, I just wanted you to know that. And I said, well, we had a lot of fun doing it, but I'm telling you, and you're right. Not just the argument itself, but so many people, Tom, viewed it. And you know what you did? You gave these people an aspect that they don't know about umpiring. That they're not aware of it. I mean, you guys live this kind of like the secretive life that by itself off to the side, and your insight, it gave me some insight into it, that of how to approach things, and I just, again, my respect for you is off the charts. But I just hope that when we do this thing, which John's going to talk about this year, that it's going to be as fun as you and I think it's going to be.
I also agree, and I'll make the promise to you, it will be.
Well, yeah, there's been some developments over the last few weeks, and we're going to make an announcement here today. But I'm sure you've both been asked to sign photos of that encounter. And Tom, when I spoke to you a few days ago, you say people send you stuff in the mail. Terry, you get stuff in the mail. People always want a signature on that. So would you say that there's still a number of people that constantly mail you stuff to sign on that argument?
Yeah, you said it's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And Terry, I'm just kind of guessing off the top of my head. I bet you I receive 3 requests a week. And either Terry has signed it already, and a lot of, they've caught on. They asked Terry to put, you got to give me a shot, and they asked me to put our asses in the jackpot. Right. And sign it. So yeah, it's it's like I've said, it's taken on a world of its own.
Yeah,
and I get the same thing. I get them every week. I get it, and I want to know who's making copies of the picture, Tom, because I mean I find so many. I'm thinking, where do they keep getting these things? How many is there out there?
Yeah, it's funny. If you go, I'm not a big social media or online guy, but every once in a while I'll kind of spread my wings and go look and search and see, and there's a lot of pictures out there, not of just me and you in the argument in that there's a lot of pictures, way too many.
Well, guys, when I was up in New York recently, I was up there for the Alumni Classic, and which was so great to just be there and see Terry and the alumni. I had a meeting. I met with the owner of a company out on Long Island called Coaches Collectibles, and they were a big promoter. They do so many things with Met players, and David Wright does so much with them. And I sat down with Dominic, who owns it. He had an event on Long Island and had Bobby Valentine there at a sports bar, and it was well attended. And I was just kind of saying we should do something together, And I went to his office in Farmingdale, and a massive warehouse of memorabilia, and just an incredible person. I just threw out a couple of ideas, and I said, "What do you think of a possible signing with Tom Hallion and Terry?" And his eyes lit up, and he goes, "Do you think that they would do that?" I was like, "Well, I'll ask. I think they would, because that has never been done. You've never appeared at a signing together before. Am I correct?"
Correct. Never. No. I mean, the
No, I never
podcast
have.
that we did 2 years ago was the first time that I really talked to Terry about the argument and everything. So yeah, that's why it's kind of coming around, and it'll be nice to get together with them and be able to do that.
Yeah, we were able to put this together with Coaches Collectibles, and there'll be 2 events that are going to take place. So I could really announce that today, that a deal for you appearing together for the very first time, 2 autograph signings in the New York area, and it'll be the first time you've done an appearance like this. The events are going to take place in December. There'll be pictures for the fans to sign. There'll be kind of a Q&A, a little panel discussing that infamous night, or that famous night, or that entertaining night, whichever way you want to look at it. And even our creative director, Marsh, has come up with a nice little idea for a picture. And Marsh, if you could pull that up and show the guys the idea that you've come up with, and because I think that once people get together and have the opportunity to have Terry and Tom sign something together for the first time, it'll be really cool. So Marsh, if you want to pull that up, we'll take a look at that.
That's March for you.
Yeah, I think it would be a great picture, and even Marsh was talking about stickers where you put them on your windshield, and so anyway, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be off the chart, and I think that it's gonna be very well attended, and it'll give the fans a great opportunity. So you got to be looking forward to that, just to be able to finally get together and sign together at these events that'll be coming up in the New York area.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, John. I don't remember, but I was ever since when Tom was on last year. I'm not sure that in the season of 2017 that I had Tom on one of the crews that we had, because that would have given us a chance to even talk about it or laugh about it or whatever it might be. But yeah, that was the first time, and so it's going to be fun. And I've done that, Tom. I've done that Queens baseball conference before. I've done it for the last 3 years, and I'm going to tell you what: when this gets out that you and I are going to be there, this place will be packed, because it is. Yeah. They are huge fans, great baseball fans. There'll be a lot of guys there, a lot of former players. You're going to get to see them, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me also, and it's funny, that photo you just put up. When I retired, my wife gave me a retirement party, surprise retirement party here. But one of the gifts was her friend had painted that same exact picture in a 3x5 poster, and everybody signed it. So it was pretty neat. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool. That's very cool.
And of course, the other event will be out on Long Island as well. And I think, Tom, you have family out there, don't you?
Yeah, I've got family everywhere. No, really, I was born and raised in New York, so most of my family is still up in the New York area, either Long Island, Staten Island, New Jersey, Brooklyn. So yeah.
So how'd you end up in
It's going to be a big turnout. I'm telling you, it's going to be big. Yeah.
I'll have to get some of my high school friends from Saugerties, New York, which is about 100 miles upstate, to come down to it, and they'll enjoy it. Some of them are big Met fans. So I'll let them know, now that I can tell them. I'll let them know that I'm coming in, and see if they want to come down.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, Tom, I'll get a hold of you. Maybe we slide in there a day early so we can just take a deep breath together and relax for a minute before we have to go out to do that stuff. So
sounds great.
Well, we appreciate that so much. I mean, it's going to be so much fun. And I wanted to kind of turn and ask a couple of baseball questions here to you, Tom, and to you, Terry. I mean, there have been changes in umpiring over the last they've been evolving. Now there's something new. It's the automatic balls and strikes rule that'll be implemented in the MLB next year. ABS, they're calling it. So I'd like to get both of your takes on this new rule when it comes to umpiring and home plate.
Well, Tom, you should answer this first since you're the.
Yeah, okay.
Let's put his ass in the jackpot on this one. Right?
So,
yeah, exactly.
I've always been an umpire that's been a little bit ahead of his time. I came up with the strike 3 call, and that was a little bit before its time. And then one of the reasons why I retired when I did was because I saw that this was coming, and I didn't want any part of it. It's going to be tough on the umpires. It's you're going to put up. Thank God it's only 2 challenges, and they keep the challenge if they get it right. But it's you got to deal with the pitcher, the catcher, and the batter when you're working home plate, and that's tough enough. But then when they're going to put it up on the scoreboard, the big pitch comes in, boom, overruled or whatever. So it's going to make their job tougher. And I always thought the job was tough enough. I didn't need more challenges. So, and again, like I've talked to people about it, it's a game played by humans who make mistakes, and that's part of the game. And they're kind of trying to make it a perfect game, and it never will be, but they keep trying to make it a perfect game.
Tom, I have to reiterate totally agree with you. If you go back and you look at the stats, and I really don't know, Tom, and maybe you probably do, but where these numbers come from. But if you look, you figure a home plate umpire who's going to look at close to 400 pitches a night, and he gets 98% of them right. That's pretty good, man. This thing is coming in at 100 miles and 90 some miles an hour. It's sinking. It's cutting. And 98% of the time you're right. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. So why think you got to have perfection? Because just like you said, there's no such thing as that. There's no such. And I don't remember time if you remember this, but in 1994, I think it was 94, 95. I got the job in Houston, and Drake McClain, who owned the team, put up a make-believe strike zone on the scoreboard. And if the umpire called a strike, it went automatically in the box itself with a velocity, and it drove other managers crazy. Well, the umpires first came in, they said, "Hey, what the hell is this thing up on the scoreboard, the strike zone?" I said, "Listen, anytime you call it a strike, it'll always be in the strike box. Even though it may not be actual, the fans won't know the difference." And I'll tell you what, it bothered so many people. It bothered other teams' pitchers and stuff. So now it's going to go up there. And I think the game, and especially what we're seeing today with the reaction of fans throughout all sports, I just think it's going to cause some real problems. That's just me. And I just think the game, like Tom said, I think the game's played by humans. And, the strike, ball and strike, these guys are so right so often. Okay, the same on the bases, Now, God, they talk about speeding the game up. Well, now every challenge they were supposed to cut it back. Every challenge is 2 minutes long now because you've got to look at all the different angles and the different things. And I know MLB, I don't even know, Tom, you've been in that room, how many cameras they have that you guys got to look at when you're in New York in the video room, but it didn't speed the game up. So I get the challenge system now a little bit, but balls and strikes I think is going to be that's too much for me.
Well, the hard part's going to be, Terry, is you watch these playoff games. These guys, their pitches move so much, and if you're going to miss that outside corner, by a half an inch, and you call it a strike, it's going to come up that you were wrong. And that's a direct shot at you that you got that pitch wrong. Well, I may get the other 158 pitches that I had to call a strike or call the pitch correct, but that one pitch is that's what you're going to be kind of labeled with for that game. It's again, it's, you know, the margin of error. Yeah, most guys now, Terry, shoot 97, 98%. Some of the newer, younger guys, they've come up with it through their whole career. They're 99. You know, I got to be honest with you, and I'll declare right here on the show, I never shot 100. I shot a 99. A couple games I missed just one pitch, but I never shot 100. But that's, you know, you think about it. You know, if you think about it,
I agree.
You know, you can miss that pitch. Say you miss a pitch an inch off the plate. You thought it was a good pitch, but it was. You go back and look at it. It was off the plate. You know, it's just now it's got to be so precise that, you know, I think, and I don't know if I should even give them this much credit, but I think what they're trying to eliminate is that 3-2 pitch that the umpire called it a ball, but it caught the outside corner black, and guy hits a home run, they challenge it, and boom, it's overturned, and the home run is no longer. I think that's what they're trying to avoid, but think about if that happens in that game. Think about the shit that's going to happen when you take away that home run. It's crazy. You know, that's the part. You always got to think ahead with, you know, when we were first starting talking about replaying plays on the field, you know, you always had to think about, you know, what could happen if, you know, you always had to come up with that case of where, hey, it's not going to work in this case. But we always said, we're opening up Pandora's box, and here it is. Yeah.
You know, I was in the Arizona Fall League a couple of years ago when they first tried to, and I don't know where these lines are. Now, that box has got to change because not every hitter's the same. So that box is going to, you know, certain boxes are going to be bigger than others. I mean, Aaron Judge can't have the same strike zone that Alex Bregman has. I mean, it's just impossible. So, or Jose Altuve. So those are going to change. But I saw pitches, Tom, that would come in, and now I think they had the lines. I don't know if they were laser lines or what they were, but it was the front of home plate. I saw breaking balls coming in and clicking that line, and then bounce and be strikes. And the hitter, of course, he's in the back of the batter's box, which is a long way from the front of that plate, that he couldn't hit with the paddle. And he, you know, and so I'm thinking, what's it going to do to the hitter? Where are these lines going to be? Just like you said, you got a ball that's coming in. You know, you got a 2-seam fastball it's running in on somebody, a Kevin Brown fastball that's moving this far, and so all of a sudden it's coming in and it clicks that inside corner and now it gets by the hitter and it's on his fists, and so you're saying, my God, that can't possibly be a strike, but oh no, it hit that corner. It's going to change the way hitters have to approach it. They're going to have to get move up towards the pitcher closer. I don't know where these lines are going to be. That's going to dictate what's a strike and what's a ball.
Yeah, that's the human aspect of it, because somebody's got to set those lines. You know, the hollow of the knee. You know, somebody's got to set that line. But you know, they think that's going to be the, you know, fix all, and they'll never have any problems. But as you know, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on the baseball field where you can still have arguments.
Very, very true. You know, Tom, I was just talking with Laura Albanese, one of the reporters, and I'm saying, I'm watching these playoff games, and right now we're talking about balls that are on the corners. I'm a little tired of watching guys take fastballs down the middle right now. You know, they're all worried about hitting the ball on the corner. You're not going to hit those pitches, those perfect pitches. And if you do, you're not going to do any damage with them. But how about doing some damage on that fastball that's down the middle that, you know, you're taking? That's, you know, And, you know, I used to love the game. It's, you know, and I used to tell the players all the time, this game is hard, man. It's it's hard to play. It's hard to umpire. And if they're going to take the fun out of playing it, because now everything can be changed. Everything can be videoed. I'll tell you what, I enjoy where I'm at now watching it. Because if things aren't going very good, I can turn it over to watch another channel. So that's what I look at it.
Me too. I like right where I'm at. I've enjoyed watching the playoff games, but I love being in my chair and watching the game.
Yeah, me too.
Well, guys, I really appreciate it. Everybody's going to look forward to you getting together for the first time.
Yeah, come on out.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing everybody.
I advise everybody to check out Coaches Collectibles, not only on Instagram, Coaches Collectibles NY1. Go to their website, which is coachescollectiblesnewyork.com. And, of course, you can also get updates on Terry's socials on Instagram and X as well. So, Tom, we thank you so much for your time today, and we will see you in December in New York.
Can't wait. There's no better place to be in America than being in New York in December.
Well, hit them straight, Tom. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Terry. Hey, you know what? I'm heading to Ireland tomorrow, so hopefully I can hit them straight over there.
Oh, that's it. Now you've got me. That's on my bucket list. That's on my bucket list to go play golf in Ireland. So,
well, we'll have something to talk about. Something else to talk about besides baseball in December.
That sounds great. That sounds great, pal. Good to see you.
All right, same here. Thanks.
Well,
that was great to see Terry and Tom back together and to announce that they will be doing their first signing ever in December at two big events coming up in the New York area. And we will have more information for you. Just follow Terry on social media or go to coachescollectiblesnewyork.com and you'll find out how to get your tickets to that. So big event coming in December. Terry and Tom. Ask in the Jackpot meets. You got to give us a shot face-to-face in person in the New York area. Now it's time for our next Tunnel to Tower story, and it's a really special one today. Mick Foley, WWE Hall of Famer, the hardcore legend himself, who does so much charity work. We're debuting a new 2-minute story today featuring that hardcore legend, Mick Foley, and his Tunnel to Tower story. Let's go to that right now.
My name is Mick Foley. I am a 3-time WWE champion. I was known for having 3 distinctly different characters: Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love. They were known as the 3 faces of Foley. Even now, 25 years after I defeated Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for the WWE title, the feat so nice I did it twice, I'm still getting not only the people who watch those matches coming up to me at appearances, but their children. So this is something they've passed down to future generations. It's really important that we stand behind the men and women who did what our country asked them to do. When our country decides to send men and women off to war, I think we have an obligation to take care of them. I think it's so important to make a donation to Tunnel to Towers because it's a reminder every month. The cost of war, it doesn't end when the conflict ends. Tunnel to Towers, providing a veteran village for homeless veterans, makes perfect sense. These men and women have been through so much, so to have a village for them with like-minded people who know what they've been through, I think it's important. It's really difficult for someone who hasn't been through what our veterans have to understand. We hear homeless in this country, we think a certain thing. I've done a lot of volunteer work with homeless. I got to know a little bit more of the mindset of the homeless veteran. It's really important that we acknowledge that our troops are struggling. It's something that all of us should open our eyes to and see how we might be able to make a difference.
By giving $11 a month, you're joining us on our mission to eradicate homelessness amongst our nation's veterans. Go to T2T.org to make a positive impact.
Well, we have just a couple of shows left for the year, one in November, one in December, and we're also exploring the idea of possibly doing a live stream at one of the Terry and Tom Hallion appearances. That'll be a lot of fun if we're able to put that together. So keep tuned and we'll let you know about that. Before we head out for today, we want to remind you to check out Amazing Conversations with Jay Horowitz, a New York Mets podcast hosted by the foremost Mets historian. Each week, Jay brings on guests from all eras in Mets history. Conversations with Jay Horowitz, available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. And of course, you could subscribe to the Terry Collins Show on your favorite podcast platform or on our YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe on the platform of your choice. And for our YouTube viewers, our entire archives of the past 2 seasons are available, including full episodes, interviews, and highlights from each show you can check out. Just go to youtube.com/The Terry Collins Show. And that'll wrap up this edition of the program. Thanks to our creative director, Marsh, and to our researcher, Dominic DiBiase. For Terry Collins, this is John Arezzi. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.